On the menu today, we use diodes and resistors to finally get to play two computers with one joystick, with some help from our friends.
Welcome.
Hello chip dippers. In a recent episode, we fashioned up this very special joystick Y cable to control two computers with the same joystick. And there were two main reasons I'd want to do something so strange. Firstly, to see if the same games on the full-size THEC64, unofficially known as the Maxi, play identically alongside a real C64 with the same joystick. And after that, to start a series I'm going to call Conversion Capers, in search of the perfect game port, by simultaneously playing ported games on different systems with the same joystick. So yeah, let's start by seeing how well the Maxi keeps up with the real thing. And for that I put the same set of games on the Blocky Bricks drive and on the USB drive for the THEC64. For this test I'm going to get rid of the QuickShot 2 Turbo. Oops, get a new one of those. And go handheld by using the Connex Speed King. I love this joystick. I used this as a kid and just a really great ergonomic feel. It's kind of like those vertical mice that you get these days. The same equivalent. This fits the hand much better. Although unlike a mouse, this one isn't squeaky clean, but never mind. And here is the famous cable, the joystick splitter that lets us play two computers with one joystick. So we'll plug the Speed King in. So let's start things off in a galaxy far, far away. As you probably saw, I recently created this Atari Star Wars Cockpit arcade machine. And I've actually found that the Empire Strikes Back game within it is a bit of a better game than even the original Star Wars. So let's use the C64 version of that game for our first test.
Oh, thank goodness we're coming out of the asteroid field.
Here we go. And although this isn't a THEC64 review, there's been enough of those already, it is interesting to note how it loads the game faster. It doesn't actually use a warp mode or speed up the processing, but it does perform some fast loading. And this game, of course, was made by Domark, named after its founders, Dominic and Mark. Let's turn up the volume on this one. Well, this is really interesting. I've left them both running for about 2 minutes, and this machine, the real one, is very slightly getting further and further behind the Maxi. And it turns out there's a very good reason why that's happening. See, both machines are set to NTSC mode, and for the real C64 that means the CRT monitor here is refreshing at 59.94 Hz, or 59.94 times per second. But because the C64 is using HDMI, it has to run at a full 60 Hz, and that 0.06 Hz difference really hurts. It means the Maxi creeps slowly ahead of the real C64. I really don't think that's an issue for real-world gameplay at all, but it's interesting to see. What's pretty cool though is the manufacturer told me they actually therefore artificially pitch shift the music so that 0.06 Hz doesn't make the music sound out of tune. Talk about attention to detail. And you can hear the same result in my favourite chip tune of all time from Cybernoid 2. And when I just looked up who made the music for this, Maniacs of Noise, turns out this Netherlands-based music production company is still going, and they've produced hundreds of tracks for video games since 1987. And I've loved this one since way before even my earliest videos. Anyway, enough of that. Let's fire and start. Oh, interesting. Fire didn't register on the other one. So I reached out to the developer of the USB adapter and he said there is a flashable firmware update for the C64 Mini, which might fix our problems. So we have to hold down fire on the joystick while plugging in the USB, and then we run the HID boot flash program, click find device, and then we click flash. Finish flashing the device. Should we try it out? Come on then.
And remember, if you want to create your own USB joystick adapter, we recommend our sponsor, PCBWay! Because as we all know, PCB stands for printed circuit.
Polishing Commodore bezels.
Polishing Commodore bezels.
Doesn't it?
Doesn't it?
Where did she come from? Well, we'll see what that Commodore bezel was that she was polishing in just a few moments. But first, let's see if our flashy flashing worked. Yes. Well, it works. I am technically playing two computers with one joystick. And you can see how the joystick cursor is completely in sync. But there is a problem with comparing this game. I'm never going to be able to shoot the same droid on both screens, because this game seems to use randomized enemies. Look at when the game first loaded up, and where that probe droid appeared on both screens. Same with the cat-cats, at-ats. It's actually hard to know which screen to look at and which thing I'm controlling. But as far as the Maxi goes, it seems to be emulating it perfectly. But there was a bit of a glitch with the joystick you probably noticed. When I pressed fire, one of the machines got tripped up and didn't respond at the same time. I think I know why. To test my theory, let's try a game that doesn't use randomized enemies, and for that, it's back to Cybernoid 2 for a moment, without the strange dancing. So firstly, wow, this is incredible. We are now truly playing two computers in sync with the one joystick. And everything seems to be moving correctly, doesn't it? Both computers are following the same pattern until this moment. I don't know if you caught that. Let's do a quick replay. Watch the screen on the left as the ship turns to its left and fires all by itself. And this kept happening in other ways that would cause the gameplay to lose sync on one computer. So what's going on here then? Well, I think the culprit is actually the keyboard, more specifically the CIA chip that reads it. You see, to check if you've typed anything, the C64 reads the keyboard matrix via the CIA chip by rapidly checking the rows and columns of keys. And to do this, it applies power to each row and column on the keyboard continuously. And these lines on the keyboard matrix are also connected to the joystick ports. I covered this a bit in my April Fool's video when warning you that you could damage the CIA chips by messing with the joystick ports. We can't get it back now without reading it in again with the light. Oops. So I think what's happening is these random signals are going out of the real C64 and into the Maxi via the Y cable. And so the Maxi interprets them as joystick movements. You can see another example of it here. When I press keys on the Commodore 64, the Maxi's menus actually move as well. Now, Commodore never worried about this back in the day because in normal usage, those stray signals would simply go up into your joystick, pardon the phrase, which has no I/O chips in it to confuse, and so they'd essentially just be ignored. So to stop this phantom joystick movement, we need a way to somehow filter out the bad signals whilst keeping the good ones. So we'll delve into the light and the dark side of signals in just a moment. Now Now, one idea might be to use resistors. As you may know, resistors work to reduce the flow of current in the same way that constricting a water pipe reduces the flow of water. And adding those to the Maxi's joystick port side might be enough to reduce those stray signals to a level that the Maxi just ignores. I have these gender changers. So what I could do is, if I just, as a test, inserted each of the resistors into these holes here, and then used this on the other end, and inserted the other end of the resistors into there, that would plug into our USB adapter. And we only need to do it on up, down, left, right, and fire. So let's get inserting. Basically, we're making a resistor bank here. Very nice. There we go, one pretty solid homemade resistor bank. Let's take this to the bank. Sorry. But although things looked really promising to begin with, the Maxi started going out of sync again. So unfortunately the resistors haven't worked, but I've got another plan. But first, let's play this for a second, just for fun. They're not playing identically, so what I'm kind of doing is, in my mind, going back to pick up the other character from the other machine if they're getting out of sync. But if we push up against an object, we can resync the characters, which is what I've done there. So let's see if I can get that diamond out. There you go, got the diamond simultaneously. Ah. Died in slightly different ways. What I want to know is why this one has more animations than this one, but it's supposedly the same game. Now we are out of sync again. But if there was ever a good demonstration of what good emulation the C64 Maxi has, I think it's this. So plan B, instead of resistors, is to use diodes. Diodes are kind of like a one-way valve in that water pipe analogy. They only let the current flow in one direction. Good band. Actually, I know one direction. North. I'm still working on the others. Anyway, if we put diodes in the Commodore 64 joystick port, although the joystick signals would be allowed into the Commodore 64, the stray signals wouldn't be allowed back out, in theory. And here are the diodes. So it's the real C64 that we want to plug, and to do that I'm going to insert these with the stripe facing towards the joystick cable. The reason for that is current flows from the anode towards the cathode of the diode, and the cathode side has that black stripe. This means we want the current to flow from the C64 to the joystick, therefore we want the current to flow from the anode to the cathode, but preventing it going the other way might stop some of those stray keyboard matrix signals ending up in the Maxi. Sounds backwards, but it's right. I mean left. There we go, one joystick port, diode bank. Let's go deposit it. Sorry. Well, my fingers were crossed, but unfortunately the diodes didn't work at all either. And yes, I did try them the other way round, just for fun. Don't try this at home. But I think it's important to show failures as well as successes. And at this point, I'm just going to have to put a pin in this part of the experiment. It could be that the diode resistance is too high. It could be the maxi is too sensitive. After all, it samples things much faster, so it may be detecting those stray signals where the real computer isn't. Which is fine because it wasn't designed for my crazy contraption. Or it could be some other eccentric Commodore intricacy of the CIA chips. How ironic that a video about game ports, it's the joystick game ports that are the problem. I might even use a little company called PCBWay once again to produce a PCB based on this schematic that I worked on with channel patron Lorin Millsap and put the whole thing in a nice enclosure in a separate special recipode. We'll go into more detail on that in a few episodes' time then, but here's the basics of why this might work for my mad scientist idea where diodes and resistors have failed. This part of the circuit is the joystick, and you can see the joystick microswitches there. And these two parts are the two computers' joystick ports. That's the Maxi and that's the Commodore 64. What's different is we've added one Texas Instruments logic buffer chip to each side. The chips have 6 buffers inside, so we can use 5 of those for up, down, left, right and fire. And there's one spare to start a kettle or whatever. But what does the buffer do? Well, using this simplified analogy, imagine this switch is the fire button and this light indicates the computer receiving the fire command. Although the joystick current is still drawn towards the buffer's in pin, the current doesn't pass directly to the out pin as with a diode. Instead, the buffer isolates the in from the out. You could think of it as someone relaying a phone call to you instead of you receiving the call yourself.
Hi, it's Jan Bieter. Hi, Jan.
It relays the message that the signal happened using a new signal. So if stray current tries to travel in the other direction, it gets stopped here because the buffer isn't made to relay signals in the other direction. And because it's isolated, there's no way for the signal to sneak past. And so the Maxi should, in theory, never see those phantom joystick movements at all. I guess we'll find out. But even with this weird glitch, we could try some more games. And this one seems to be going really well. We are playing 2 games with 1 joystick. Here we go. And I've now hit another issue. A lot of games have randomized levels as well as random enemies. Impossible Mission, Nodes of Yesod. Even Paradroid. I never realized this back in the day. And much that I want to embark on some good old joystick waggling on Daley Thompson's Decathlon, it wouldn't respond to any joystick controls at all, even without the Y cable. I don't know why. And then yet another different issue with Sam's journey is that the Maxi actually tries to prevent you using third-party joysticks, and in our case, the USB adapter didn't work with my Conix Speed King. Anyway, whilst we may not be able to get a perfectly synced gameplay of the C64 Maxi versus the real C64, I have a hunch we'll have less problems trying more similarly built retro machines against each other. Now, there's only so much I can do in one video, but very soon we'll start comparing Atari 400 game conversions with the real C64, and Commodore versus Commodore, C64 versus Amiga, all in search of the perfect port. So for comparing our old school machines, we're going to have to lose the HDMI monitor and switch to 2 CRTs, but this one needs a bit of a cleanup.
Magic eraser?
How's it work?
It's magic. No, you just get it wet, squeeze it out, and it does a really good job.
are you going to use to get that blue tack off the front?
I'm using duck adhesive remover with scraper. Essentially, it's glue gun.
That's
and-
for removing duck adhesive?
Yes.
I'll get it. There you go. God bless you.
Oh, thank you. I love 30-year-old dust.
What you got there?
Q-tips.
Q-tips. Those are earbuds.
You say copy machine, I say Xerox.
I don't say copy machine, I say photocopier.
You always copying pictures?
Only of you, darling.
Wah, wah.
Next thing you'll be saying is you call the vacuum cleaner a Hoover.
No, that's you.
That is me. I guess we're all the same after all. Notice your hair's getting quite long
Yeah. Yours isn't.
because you cut it
I did cut it.
with a Hoover.
I did. A Hoover with teeth.
I'm not even kidding. This is the vacuum cleaner hair cutter that I bought on Amazon. It actually did quite a good job.
No, I did a good job.
She actually did quite a good job.
Ta-da!
Well, thanks, Ladyfractic. Saved me a lot of work. And check below the video for some new merch. And coming up in a week or 3, we'll take our nice clean monitor and start searching for the perfect port with these Atari 400 titles and some more great games like these ones. Until next time, thanks for watching, subscribe and support below, and cheerio.